Transactional Analysis, America's Roadmap to Emotional Intelligence. Government gang stalking is outrageous behavior by a percentage of our population. Police, firemen, ambulance drivers, security guards, neighborhood watch group members. This behavior hasn't sprung from nothing. It has unfolded from a nation in continuous war. Police state America, a country where freedom and liberty is on the decline. What accounts for the violence, for the erosion of liberty, for the scapegoating and displays of hate? We watch television news and hear the perspectives of our military-industrial complex, our intelligence-industrial complex. We evaluate phenomena by their criteria. It's time we sought answers from other perspectives. The Pope will address Congress in September. A moral perspective is sorely needed in America, but a psychological perspective is needed too, to understand what motivates people. Transactional analysis may be the very psychological perspective America needs. It has user-friendly terminology, uses everyday words. It may be America's means of emotional intelligence, something not taught in our schools, but an absolute necessity because we are not only intellectual beings, but emotional beings too. In infancy, we all acquire, Thomas A. Harris tells us in the Transactional Analysis book, I'm okay, you're okay, I'm not okay, you're okay, life position. Ejected from the secure environment of the womb at birth into an environment where our needs are met by others, most of us are picked up to be cared for. We conclude, in a non-intellectual way, the environment is okay. But about him, herself, in a non-intellectual, non-verbal way, the infant concludes, I'm not okay, has feelings, I'm not okay. Satisfaction of my needs, my wants, depend on something outside myself, without which there is pain and discomfort and not okayness. In order to be okay, I need another for my okayness. What is okay is out there. What the infant needs in transactional analysis is called strokes. A stroke has been defined as a unit of attention which provides stimulation to the individual. Dave Spenceley explains, physical stimulation is a basic human need. This is supported by research, Spitz, 1945. It was noted that children deprived of physical stimulation may sink into decline and become prone to death. Byrne described this as stimulus hunger. As we grow and develop, our stimulus hunger develops and is partially transferred to a psychological version, which Byrne describes as recognition hunger. Therefore, a working definition of a stroke is a transaction which provides a person with either recognition or stimulation. It appears that it matters little whether this recognition or stimulation is positive or negative. For example, a child is naughty in order to gain attention rather than be ignored. Therefore, it is worth noting that attention-seeking behaviors have value for those who are behaving in that way, and it is important to give them attention. Claude Steiner agrees. A stroke is the fundamental motive for human behavior, he tells us. People need strokes to survive physically and psychologically. Strokes are transactional units of recognition. Positive strokes are pleasurable, negative strokes are painful. People prefer positive strokes, but will seek and accept negative strokes when they are stroke hungry. Eric Berne, the founder of Transactional Analysis, explains things in more depth in his book, Games People Play. The social psychiatrist's concern in the matter is with what happens after the infant is separated from his mother in the normal course of growth. Hence, After the period of close intimacy with the mother is over, the individual for the rest of his life is confronted with a dilemma upon whose horns his destiny and survival are continually being tossed. One horn is the social, psychological, and biological forces which stand in the way of continued physical intimacy in the infant style. The other is his perpetual striving for its attainment. Under most conditions, he will compromise. He learns to do with more subtle, even symbolic, forms of handling until the merest nod of recognition may serve the purpose to some extent, although his original craving for physical contact may remain unabated. This process of compromise may be called by various terms such as sublimation, but whatever it is called, the result is a partial transformation of the infantile stimulus hunger. As the complexities of compromise increase, each person becomes more and more individual in his quest for recognition, and it is these differentia which lend variety to social intercourse and which determine the individual's destiny. The movie star needs strokes from his fans. The businessman needs strokes for his accumulation of wealth. The intellectual needs strokes for his book. The youth in Columbine who did not get strokes from his peers may settle for the negative strokes gotten in experiencing their pain. Life would be easier if we lived in a transparent culture where we could openly ask for the strokes, the recognition we need from others for our psychic survival. But transparency opens us up to rejection and pain, so we devise games to covertly get the stroking we need. Transactional Analysis author Thomas A. Harris puts it this way: I believe that acknowledging the not okay child in each of us is the only sympathetic, thus curative way games can be analyzed. Feelings of inferiority are the basis of man's struggle in life. He feels a great need for stroking or recognition, which is the psychological version of the early physical stroking. In this position, there is hope because there is a source of stroking. You're okay, even if the stroking is not constant. The adult has something to work on. What must I do to gain their strokes or their approval? This is how we can understand phenomena like government gang stalking. Why would police, firemen, EMS, ambulance drivers, security guards, neighborhood watch group members cause such pain, gang stalk a member of the community 24/7 for years? What is going on in them to make them do this? To answer that question, you have to understand one more transactional analysis concept, the concept of ego state. Our brains are like tape recorders. Thomas A. Harris tells us the parent ego state, which we all have, is a reproduction of what we saw and heard from parents as children. It's a recording of some of the most significant actual experiences of internal and external events in our lives that were recorded straight without editing and their interpretation. Our parent ego state consists of admonitions and rules and laws that the child heard from his parents and saw in their living. The person cannot erase it. It replays throughout life. It's what causes overreactions, compulsions, and quirks and eccentricities. We also have the capability for a child ego state, which is a recording in our brain of internal events, the responses of the child to what he sees and hears. The child ego state consists of reproductions of what the patient saw and heard and felt and understood. Most of our early reactions were feelings. What we all do is transfer to current situations unhappy feelings recorded from our past. Your child is hooked when you replay original feelings of frustration, rejection, or abandonment, depression. Positive feelings are also recorded in the child: creativity, curiosity, the desire to explore and know, the urges to touch and feel and experience. But it is the not okay feelings from childhood that generally outweigh the good. Luckily, we are all also capable of coming from an adult ego state. Self-actualization is the beginning of adult, the result of child's ability to find out for himself, says Thomas Harris in his book, I'm Okay, You're Okay. A life based on the adult ego state would be a life based on data gathering and data processing, principally concerned with transforming stimuli into pieces of information and processing and filing that information on the basis of previous experience. When we are in our adult ego state, we can examine data in our parent ego state to see if it is true and applicable today, then to accept or reject it. In the adult ego state, we can examine child data to see whether or not the feelings there are appropriate to the present or are archaic, and in response to archaic parent data. We can erase the parent and child data in all our brains, but we can turn it off. In our adult ego state, we can do probability estimating and decide the probability of various things happening. But under sufficient stress, our adult can be contaminated, and that's when emotions take over. To regain our adult ego state, we need analyze the similarity between the present incoming signal producing the distress and the original transaction in which the small child experienced the distress. In our adult ego state, we can provide the how-to our creative child's want-to. With psychological insights from transactional analysis, we can understand phenomena like government gang stalking. If we lived in a more transparent culture, life would be much easier. We could just ask for the strokes, the recognition we needed. But that would make us vulnerable too, cause pain at times. So we devise what Eric Berne calls games to get what we need and what we want more covertly. It's games that makes straight talk impossible. The data gang stalkers operate by isn't data whose accuracy they've ascertained in an objective way. Rather, it is data given to them by their COINTELPRO masters operating in the parent ego state. Gang stalkers operating in the adaptive ego state swallow it whole. The game gang stalkers play, blemish. Played in totalitarian countries, there is something wrong with the gang stalking target. Focusing attention on the target, scapegoating, keeps attention off what's wrong with the person in the parent ego state who starts the game. The COINTELPRO masters who orchestrate the government gang stalking in their parent ego state feel justified playing the game blemish because they are not operating in the adult ego state, which is concerned with unbiased analysis of facts, but rather operate in the this is so because I say it is so authoritarian parent state. Gang stalkers, those in the adapted child ego state, commiserate with their COINTELPRO masters in charge of government gang stalking by playing the game, ain't it awful? Targets are that way. How do we liberate those in the adapted child ego state? How do we raise our society from the level of games to the level of adult-to-adult dialogue? It requires those operating in the adapted child ego state to throw off the influence of the individual parental, social, and cultural background, and to begin to think for themselves, engaging in objective data collection and processing. Eric Berne, in Games People Play, tells us the advantage derived from one's immediate social circle have to be partly or wholly sacrificed. It's a pretty tall psychological order. In order to stop playing games like blemish, gang stalkers have to become autonomous, not driven to have their psychological needs for recognition unconsciously met by the gang stalking group, not using the group as a means to feel more powerful, less inferior, more okay. Burns says this is done by obtaining a friendly divorce from one's parents and from other parental influences so that they may be agreeably visited on occasion but are no longer dominant. Wouldn't it be nice if in America, wouldn't it be nice if America were an emotionally intelligent country and the people in America knew how to do that?